FSC results were out. Bill had failed twice before. When he finally passed on his third attempt, he was celebrating like he had conquered some great empire. And at that very moment, he was shaking his hips to that song, you know the one. The one where the woman sings about being everyone's fantasy. Right there with him was Ahmed Faris, no, wait, Matthew Faris. Yes. Matthew was right there, celebrating just as loudly by his side. The Effendi villa, the Ashford villa, was in complete chaos at that moment. All the elders of the household had gone to attend a funeral in the neighboring town. The mansion was left with only the younger crowd. Suddenly, the lounge door opened. But the music was so loud that no one even noticed. The three of them, Bill, Matthew, and another cousin, were lost in the song, eyes closed, dancing with their whole bodies. Watching this scene, Ethan Ashford's forehead creased. He barely managed to control the lava rising inside him. The cruel irony of fate was that he wasn't alone at that moment, he had brought his grandmother from the village. The poor woman saw her grandsons dancing like girls and clutched her chest in shock. Before she could fall to the ground and formally begin the morning ritual, Ethan stepped forward, caught her, and then shouted at the top of his lungs. "Stop all of this right now." But the song didn't stop. If anything, Bill got even more hyped. The song was reaching its climax, and he was determined to leave no dance move unused. Until a flying sandal came out of nowhere and landed right on his hip. This time, a loud scream escaped his lips. Before he could even regain his balance, a second sandal struck him on the head. Grandma was well past 60, but her aim was still deadly accurate. When Matthew's eyes landed on Grandma, he felt his breath catch in his throat. The next second, he rushed to turn off the music. Poor Bill sat on the floor, groaning from his heart. "Oh my God, I think I'm dying. Oh, my hip is broken. Oh, you cruel people, why this injustice only on me?" "Because you're the biggest disgrace," Grandma said, planting her hands on her hips. "I had heard that my grandchildren were respectful and modest. But looking at you people, it seems you've sold all your shame and taken Sunny Leone's share of shame as well." This time even Ethan froze. "Grandma, how do you know about her?" Matthew asked, eyes wide. "Oh, how would I not know? I recognize that face in one look. She came at our time itself." Matthew was now struggling to suppress his laughter. "Wait, Grandma, you've heard this entire song? And with the video?" He didn't wait for an answer. He ran away before anyone could say another word. Ethan had been watching everything in silence until now. He sat Grandma on the sofa and turned his attention to Bill. "What kind of drama have you people put on? I messaged you, keep the house in order, Grandma is coming." Bill shifted restlessly, still in pain. He had been so busy dancing that he hadn't even thought to check his phone. "And where are the other girls?" Ethan asked. Bill pointed toward the back courtyard of the mansion. "They're all sitting there. Since morning, they've been making fancy snacks and eating. God forbid they care about their brothers even a little. We've been sitting here hungry since morning." Bill was now determined to humiliate them too, but succeeding at that was going to be a little difficult. Because Ethan's eyes had landed on the burger and pizza wrappers scattered across the lounge. It looked like a feast for 25 people had been devoured, though in reality, there were only 3 of them. "Take Grandma to her room," Ethan said. "I'll deal with them." He walked toward the back courtyard, but stopped frozen at the door. From the other side, Cassie's voice was coming loud and full of energy. "Stop, stop. Let me tell you. I have a PhD in this. I know exactly how to bring Ethan's temper down." She narrowed her big eyes and stared at her cousin Jasmine as if she were a criminal. Cassie lifted her chin and, in Ethan's signature authoritative tone, pressed every word. "Work must be done on time. I don't like excuses." The lounge erupted in girls' laughter again. Alia buried her face in a pillow, laughing, while Sanaa almost fell off the sofa. I swear, Cassie said, returning to her normal voice, hands on her hips, you ask that man, does using fancy words come with a heavy tax? Do words get deducted from your bank account? Because he weighs and measures every single syllable. Meanwhile, the other person pours out their whole heart, gets emotional, shares their pain, and what does Mr. Ethan say? Cassie changed her expression again, droopy eyes, heavy voice. We'll see. I spoke to her at length yesterday. And all I got back was one word, okay. I said, oh God, does this man's dictionary only have 4 or 5 words? Suddenly, Alia's eyes lifted toward the door. There stood Ethan, arms crossed, leaning against the doorframe, watching Cassie with murderous eyes. She nudged Sanaa, whose laughter also came to a halt. Cassie had her back to Ethan, so she hadn't seen him. She kept talking non-stop. I still haven't done that scene, when he runs his hands through his hair in anger and says, stay in your limits. And if someone crosses the limit, what should be done, Miss Cassie? Cassie's entire being jolted at that familiar voice. She turned slowly, terrified. And there he was. The enemy himself. The very man whose honor she had been dragging through the mud. All the other cousins quietly got up and slipped away. Only Ethan and Cassie remained. Speak, he said. Why have you gone silent? I'm asking you, when someone crosses the limit, what should be done? Cassie swallowed hard and said in a trembling voice. You should give them a last warning. Tell them not to cross the limit again. Looking at the fear on her face and her shaking body, he smiled strangely. Then he stepped closer until he was standing right in front of her. The distance between them was now only 2 fingers wide. Cassie's breath caught in her throat. Ethan leaned slightly toward her face and blew softly on her eyes, saying in a husky voice. All right then. Last warning. He raised one finger, warning her, and walked away. Cassie stood there, staring at his back. Oh my God. What kind of man is this? I thought he would humiliate me, tear me apart, but he just said last warning. Well, at least I'm safe. She hurried toward the inner part of the mansion, humming to herself, ready to confront her cousins who had abandoned her like cowards. It was 5 p.m. Grandma had set up her court in the lounge. Cassie and Bill were standing in the center of the room. Cassie had painted pure innocence all over her face. Bill, on the other hand, looked like he had no blood left in his body. Grandma, I have severe stomach pain, Bill groaned, clutching his belly. I feel like I'm going to die. He was about to sit down on the floor when Grandma's sharp voice cut through. If useless people like you decreased in number, the world wouldn't miss them. Bill made a sour face. You don't value me at all. He straightened up again, because there was no point in pretending anymore. Why did you people break Uncle Shafiq's car? Grandma demanded. He told me Cassie punctured his tires, and you broke his windows. Did I raise you to harm innocent people? Bill shifted restlessly. Cassie's eyes suddenly fell on Ethan, who was just entering the mansion. She called out to him loudly, then turned to Grandma. Grandma, I have nothing to do with any of this. I don't even know anything. And the day you're talking about, I was studying with Ethan. You can ask him yourself. She blinked her eyes dramatically at Ethan. He just stared back at her. He's your uncle's son, Grandma said. Why are you calling him Ethan? Call him Ethan Lala. Cassie shifted uncomfortably. Then Grandma turned to Ethan. Yes, Grandma, Ethan said. Cassie is telling the truth. And actually, we still have a small study session left. Cassie, hurry up and grab your books and meet me in my room. Cassie felt the ground slip from under her feet. Well. There it was. Fell from the sky, landed in a date palm. She remembered it very clearly now. Just 2 weeks ago, Ethan had asked her to bring her study report. Her performance had been absolutely terrible, and she only went to college to cause chaos. The teachers were furious with her. To make matters worse, she had given Matthew's number as her parents' contact. Matthew, who could pretend to be her father 1 minute and mimic her mother's voice the next. A natural talent, truly. She walked out of Grandma's court, made a sour face, and entered Ethan's room. It looked like a prince's chamber. Everything was organized perfectly. He was very strict about discipline. Sit. Open your books. Cassie opened her books, which looked like they hadn't been touched since the day they were bought. Where's your study report? Ethan asked, getting straight to the point. Well, Mr. Ethan, on the way here, a dog ate my report. What? Ethan screamed in disbelief. I mean, what I meant was. Matthew ate it. Cassie was completely flustered now. First of all, this enemy of hers was sitting way too close. Second, his eyes kept wandering to her face, making her more confused than ever. And third, he had no idea what was going on in her heart. Then give me your teacher's number, Ethan said seriously. I need to talk to them. But Mr. Ethan. Before she could make another excuse, he looked into her eyes and said in a firm tone. If you lie to me about this, I'll make you stand on one leg all night. You know I don't joke. Whatever I say, I do. Cassie felt like tearing her hair out. It would have been better to just stand in Grandma's court and spin around. But what's done was done. She nervously dialed her teacher's number, which was switched off. Are you making a fool of me? Ethan said. This time, Cassie stared at his face carefully, as if looking for an L there. Ethan gritted his teeth and took the phone from her hands. He redialed the number himself, and this time, it connected. The professor heard Cassie's name and then proceeded to list every single complaint. She only came to college 3 days a week. Those 3 days were spent fighting and threatening other girls in her grandfather's name. The other 4 days, she either left early or didn't show up at all. The professor even told Ethan that he had spoken to Cassie's father 2 or 3 times, and each time, the father said, "This is the age to enjoy. Let her be." Ethan's blood pressure shot through the roof. "Who is your father?" he shouted. Cassie panicked and blinked her eyes innocently. "There's only one father, Mr. Ethan." "What kind of question is that?" Ethan massaged his forehead in frustration. "I'm talking about that fake father, the one you introduced to your professor." "Oh. That." Cassie still wasn't taking it seriously. The next moment, Ethan grabbed her arms and pinned her against the wall. He looked into her eyes and said through gritted teeth, "Just because I or others in this house treat you with gentleness doesn't mean you can do whatever you want." His breath was touching her face. Feeling the tight grip on her arms, tears welled up in Cassie's eyes. "Mr. Ethan. I'm really sorry. Please take your hands off my arms. It hurts." Tears broke free and rolled down her cheeks. Seeing them, Ethan stepped back immediately. He felt the weight of his own mistake. "From today onward, you will go to college with me. And after coming back, you will sit with me and study for 2 hours. Other than that, no more going out and wandering around. And tell me, who helped you fool your professors?" Cassie swallowed hard. The next second, she took Matthew's name and bowed her head. A little while later, Matthew's heart-wrenching screams echoed through the mansion. Ethan had taken away his heavy bike. The very bike Matthew was going to use to impress his new girlfriend. Cassie had betrayed him and shattered his dreams. And Cassie herself? She ended up studying with Ethan until 2 a.m. that night. That night, she realized she was the most incompetent woman in the world. Or maybe that's just what happens when you open your books after 8 months. "Mr. Ethan, don't you ever feel sleepy?" At 2 a.m., as her eyes began to close, she looked at his face with heavy, drowsy eyes. Silence. "Just study," he said shortly. She made a sour face and went quiet. Within minutes, she was asleep with her head on Ethan's thigh. Ethan was so absorbed in his work that he didn't even notice. When he finally looked down, his heart beat in a strange way. "Cassie. Wake up. Go to your room." He gently tapped her cheek. Cassie grabbed his hand and pressed it to her chest. "Please let me sleep. I'm so tired. I promise I'll study everything tomorrow." She pressed his hand even tighter against her chest. Ethan's heartbeat stuttered. He pulled his hand free and grabbed her arm to lift her. Instead of getting off the bed, she fell on top of him again. "I'm so tired. I feel like crying. Please don't wake me up." She started pouting like a little child. "Go sleep in your own room," Ethan said, leaning toward her ear. But Cassie had no awareness left. The next moment, Ethan, controlling himself with great effort, lifted her in his arms and carried her to her room. Deep down, he was praying no one in the mansion saw them. Otherwise, a new scandal would erupt. And if Matthew got even a whiff of this? Matthew had scores to settle with Ethan. He was just laying her down on her bed when Cassie wrapped both arms around his neck again and whispered, "Please end my punishment. Let me enjoy my life freely. What if I end up with a grumpy husband like you someday? My life will be ruined." And God knows what else she was saying. Ethan freed his neck from her arms, pulled the blanket over her, and walked out of her room with long, heavy breaths. His mind was stuck on one sentence. What if I end up with a grumpy husband like you? He put his hand on his chest involuntarily. Am I that bad? He asked himself. Then he shook his head and got back to work. He had a multi-million-dollar business deal to finalize. He didn't have time to think about such foolish things. As for Cassie, she had set foot in Pakistan 2 years ago. Her parents had sent her here because they were tired of her antics. London's environment was so strange that they feared their daughter would become like the Westerners. They promised they would come to Pakistan soon too. But 2 years had passed, and they still hadn't kept that promise. The reason? Her father had a huge business there that he couldn't leave. Her mother was also a businesswoman. Both were settled in their careers. Even when Cassie lived in London, she mostly stayed with her grandmother. Her parents were always traveling to other countries for business meetings, which looked less like visits and more like honeymoons. Cassie had been sure she would come to Pakistan and live life on her own terms, causing chaos everywhere. But here too, a chief like Ethan Ashford had been appointed over her head. Not that she took Ethan very seriously. The next morning, Cassie sat in Ethan's car, making faces. She wasn't talking today. She hadn't played any pranks since morning. Because Ethan had told her, "I will come pick you up. I will also take your report from your teacher. If you cause any more trouble, I'll cut off your pocket money." Cassie could survive without many things, but not without money. So it was better to keep herself under control. That evening, when she returned, she found out there was going to be a huge party at the mansion. The party was to celebrate the success of Ethan's business deal. He had managed to close a multi-million-dollar deal in just a few days. Cassie was sitting with her cousins when she heard her aunt's daughter, Haley's, voice. "I swear, if I marry Ethan Ashford, I'll be the luckiest woman alive. He's unbelievably rich, and look how handsome he is. I don't think anyone in our family is more beautiful than him." Cassie made a sour face. "Then you need glasses, Miss Haley. There are people in our family more handsome than Ethan. Just look at Matthew." Matthew heard this and puffed out his chest. Cassie smiled brightly at him. Recently, she had been feeling very affectionate toward Matthew, even though she had complained about him. Despite that, her cousin hadn't said anything to her. Or maybe she didn't know that Matthew was plotting something in his heart. All the cousins burst out laughing at the mention of Matthew. "If he's so handsome, why don't you marry him yourself?" someone teased. "I will only marry Ethan Ashford," Haley said, crossing one leg over the other and leaning back arrogantly. After all, she was the most beautiful girl in the family, the one anyone would die for. And that was largely true. But Cassie didn't care for her at all. And as for Ethan, Cassie felt he had no interest in Haley either. Soon, all the cousins started playing Truth or Dare. During this, Cassie's eyes kept drifting to Ethan. He was standing in a crowd of his friends, talking animatedly. She was seeing him talk so much for the first time. Oh my God, this man actually has a tongue in his mouth. Her lips smiled at the thought. Suddenly, her cousin Noah spoke up excitedly. My turn. My dare is. Before he could finish, Lucas jumped in. I dare her. He pointed at Cassie. I dare you, Cassie. Right now. Go propose to Mr. Ethan Ashford. Cassie's eyes widened. You're joking, right? She said in a trembling voice. No joke. This is a dare. And you have to complete it no matter what. All the other cousins started shouting in agreement. Even Haley joined in, she wanted to see Cassie humiliated. Cassie controlled herself and walked toward Ethan with small, hesitant steps. Ethan saw her coming. He went silent for a moment and looked at her questioningly. His friends also turned their attention to Cassie. There was admiration in their eyes. But Cassie didn't care about his friends. She was mentally reciting prayers before chopping off her own feet. You're still standing here, she said to Ethan. Did you forget we have to go to my mom's house? She was already upset yesterday. She said my son-in-law hasn't come to meet me. Cassie stood there, making up lies, because proposing for marriage was way too hard. Ethan's friends stared at him in shock. He wasn't even engaged, let alone married. Cassie immediately ran back to her cousins. She turned back to look at Ethan and held her right ear, a silent sorry. Ethan's face turned red with shame and embarrassment. Now his friends were grilling him. You got married and didn't tell us? You've been hiding your wife from us? This is so wrong. We'll have to complain to your father. Before his friend Asher could say more, Ethan grabbed his arm. Have you lost your mind? Why are you so embarrassed? Getting married isn't a bad thing. Another friend teased him. Ethan massaged his forehead. So tell us, when will we get to eat your wedding sweets? Ethan looked at his friends and said in a deep voice. Give me 1 week. I'll feed you sweets and throw a grand wedding feast. For now, I need to go meet my wife's mother. Excuse me. His friend smiled charmingly and slowly left. Meanwhile, Cassie's cousins were deeply disappointed. We told you to propose to Mr. Ethan. Instead, you made up lies. You failed your dare. Cassie shifted uncomfortably. What could she tell them? That proposing to that chief with her own mouth was not just hard, it was impossible. She was silently praying that Ethan wouldn't say anything to her. Then Ethan saw her standing alone. He walked toward her with strong, determined steps. Let's go. Cassie's eyes widened in shock. What do you mean? Go where? She mumbled. To your mother's house, he said with a mischievous wink. Cassie's heart pounded loudly. I had a dare. I'm really sorry. Forgive me. Before she could say anything else, Ethan closed the distance between them in one swift move. Cassie's breath got stuck in her chest. Ethan's eyes were tracing her face. And kept drifting to her lips. But I got embarrassed in front of my friends. They think you're my wife now. And you know, in our family, once a girl's name is linked with a boy's, it never goes away until death. Cassie got even more confused. I don't understand what you're talking about. Ethan smiled charmingly. You'll find out soon enough. He walked toward Grandma. He whispered something in her ear. And then, a few minutes later, when the announcement was made in the lounge, Cassie felt the ground slip from under her feet. Grandma announced to all the relatives in a firm tone that she had finalized the engagement between Ethan and Cassie. Their wedding would take place next week. Cassie felt like bursting into tears like a little child. She had never even imagined in her wildest dreams that this dare would land on her neck. Now she was also worried. What if Ethan settled all his scores with her after marriage? Haley, on the other hand, looked like she had seen a ghost. This can't happen, she said to herself. The next moment, she walked up to Cassie with long, angry strides and grabbed her arm. I never thought you would stoop so low. You knew I loved him. Cassie freed her arm in one jerk and looked Haley straight in the eye. Whatever you have to say, go say it to Grandma. I have no fault in any of this. I only did what you all told me to do. She freed her arm and ran to her room. She still couldn't believe this had happened. Yesterday, she was avoiding Ethan and making faces at him, and today, she was engaged to him. At the end of the party, Grandma called her to her room. Cassie was nervous, twisting her fingers, because Ethan was already there. Child, do you have any objection to this match? Grandma asked, looking at her. Cassie felt very awkward in front of Ethan. Yes, Grandma. I have an objection, she said, gathering all her courage. Grandma let out a deep breath. Then get rid of that objection as soon as possible, because your wedding will happen with Ethan no matter what. Your engagement was fixed in childhood itself. And as far as I can see, there's no better time than now. Grandma, my studies aren't complete yet, Cassie said restlessly. Don't worry. They won't be complete for another 5 years anyway. Instead of wasting time there, give this mansion an heir. You'll get both respect and praise. Cassie's face turned red with shame. Oh my God, what kind of things is Grandma saying in front of Ethan? Ethan, meanwhile, was watching her facial expressions closely, trying to figure out what was going on in her mind. When he walked out, Cassie also ran after him. Mr. Ethan, I need to talk to you about something important. Actually, there's a small confusion. Haley used to say she loves you. She wants to marry you. She had started her nonstop chatter when suddenly Ethan put his finger on her lips and stepped closer. She was pressed against the wall. Her tongue stuck to the roof of her mouth. I have no connection with Haley. I was never interested in her. I only care about you. You are my future wife. Put that in your little mind. And forget that I would ever be interested in anyone other than you. He blew softly on her eyes and walked away with long strides. But he turned back one last time. Make yourself mine, and start eating a little more. Don't complain to me later. She understood the hidden meaning of his words and bent double with shame again. She would never admit it in front of anyone, but deep in some corner of her heart, she really liked this grumpy chief. And when their names were taken together, it didn't feel bad at all. It felt like some deep, hidden wish had come true. The next morning, Ethan's mother, Fiona Ashford, immediately took Cassie to the market. They needed to find the perfect outfit for her wedding. Cassie's parents had also arrived from London. They were both very happy for Cassie. Her mother, Amara, kept saying, "This has been my wish all along, that these two would get married someday." Haley, who was already burning with jealousy, said sharply, "You people should be ashamed. There's almost a 10-year age gap between Cassie and Ethan. You're being cruel to Cassie, marrying her to someone who will be old in 10 years. Amara gave her a stern look. That's none of your concern. But Cassie's little heart started beating strangely. Oh my God, is he really 10 years older than me? He doesn't look that old. This was the first time she realized the age gap. And now this was giving her tension too. When she told her friends, they only added to her fear. We've heard that older men are very strong. And your chief already seems 5 times stronger than you. Your fate is sealed. Prepare yourself for the wedding night. Cassie's ears turned red with shame. Why are you scaring me like this? And anyway, I'll just tell him I'm sleepy. I want to sleep. Her friends burst out laughing. We'll see if he lets you sleep. With such a beautiful young wife, only a fool would choose sleep over love. I think he'll sleep for 4 days straight before the wedding, so he won't feel sleepy on the 5th day. They laughed again. Cassie was beyond embarrassed. You're all terrible, shameless women. I shouldn't have told you anything. She was about to hang up when her friend's voice came again. Wait, be patient. If you don't ask us, you'll get a shock on the wedding night. At least we're preparing you. I'm only having the Nika, the wedding night will come much later. She hung up and put her hand on her chest, breathing deeply. She looked at herself in the mirror, from head to toe. She really was capable of stealing anyone's faith. The thought of Ethan brought a shy smile to her lips. She started biting her lower lip. There was a knock at the door. The maids had brought her dresses. Oh my God, it's just a wedding. Why are these people getting so many clothes made? She had no idea. Grandma had already planned to have the couple leave together right after the ceremony. Cassie found this out on the wedding day itself, when she was made to sit next to Ethan on the sofa. Ethan took her hands in his. Out of fear and shyness, Cassie's palms were sweating. She tried to free her hand, but failed. Sit here quietly, Ethan whispered in her ear. If you cause any trouble here, I'll punish you tonight. Cassie was badly disturbed. Tonight, I'll be in my room. And I'll lock it from inside. You won't be able to do anything to me. Ethan felt so much love for her at that innocent reply. He could barely stop himself from pulling her into his arms. My dear, tonight you will be in my room. And you will do whatever I tell you to do. When the time came for her to leave, Cassie cried. Partly from leaving her family, and partly from the betrayal she felt. Oh God, I haven't even prepared myself mentally yet. I wasn't ready for this at all. As soon as she reached Ethan's room, she called her friends. Her friends laughed at her condition. The time is up. The water has passed over your head. Whatever you need to ask now, ask your husband. Connection terminated. Cassie sat in silence, twisting her fingers. It was midnight. Cassie's heartbeat was at its peak. The door opened. Ethan Ashford stepped inside with strong, confident steps. The masculine scent of his cologne filled the room and overwhelmed Cassie's senses. She had been sitting in the corner of the bed, her veil over her face, clutching the edge of her lehenga with trembling hands. She flinched at Ethan's footsteps. Ethan locked the door. His footsteps moved toward Cassie. With every step, Cassie's breath caught in her throat. Ethan came close to the bed and sat right in front of her. Very gently, very lovingly, he lifted her veil. Cassie immediately lowered her eyelids out of shyness. Ethan looked at her glowing, radiant face, and his eyes stayed there. He leaned close to her ear and whispered. You look beautiful, Cassie. Hearing this, Cassie's palms began to sweat again. A blush spread across her cheeks. Ethan moved closer and took her trembling hands in his grip. The moisture of her sweat told him how nervous she was. His touch sent a current through Cassie's entire being. He moved his warm hands up to her shoulders and very gently began removing her outer dupatta, unfastening the pins. As each pin came out, Cassie's heart sank. Finally, the dupatta slipped from her shoulders. Without the dupatta, her stunning figure was right in front of Ethan. Cassie lowered her head even further out of shame, trying to hide from his gaze. Ethan smiled at this gesture. He lifted her chin with the fingers of his right hand and raised her face. Cassie's heavy, fearful, beautiful eyes met Ethan's deep, intense ones. He looked at her face, then fixed his gaze on her trembling pink lips. In a mesmerized, deep voice, he said, I don't want to waste time talking tonight. Before Cassie could process his words, Ethan took her in his strong arms and captured her lips. Cassie closed her eyes involuntarily. Ethan kissed her lips with intense passion, slowly, deliberately consuming every part of him. Cassie began to lose control. Her senses were slipping away. Her breath became uneven. The warmth of his closeness and the touch of his lips intoxicated her. Even if she wanted to, she couldn't stop herself from drowning. Ethan's boldness was now crossing all limits. He pulled Cassie tighter against his chest, and his strong hands pressed against her beating heart over her blouse. At his bold move, a soft whimper escaped Cassie's lips. Her entire body trembled from his closeness and pressure. Her whimpers echoed in the silence of the room. But instead of loosening his grip, Ethan pressed her heartbeat even harder. In a state of helplessness and intoxication, Cassie placed her hands on Ethan's broad shoulders. "Please, Ethan," she tried to say, but her voice got lost in his chest. Ethan didn't let her say another word. He put his finger on her lips, signaling her to stay quiet. The next moment, he lifted her delicate frame in his strong arms and sat her on his lap. Her heavy lehenga spread around them. Ethan's deep, intensifying gaze moved from her face to the zipper of her blouse. When his hand reached for the zipper, a sensation ran through Cassie's entire body. Fear and shyness surrounded her. She tried to grab his arms with trembling hands. "No, please, stop," she pleaded softly. Ethan dismissed her weak resistance. He leaned close to her face and said in an intensely husky voice, "I have full rights over you, Cassie. Over every part of you. You cannot stop me. And you shouldn't. Because you know, even angels get angry at disobedience." His words ended what little resistance Cassie had left. Her hands loosened on his arms. Ethan unzipped her blouse with skill and intensity and slipped it off her shoulders. Cassie immediately closed her eyes and placed both hands on her chest, trying to hide herself from his gaze. In front of Ethan stood a masterpiece of shyness and beauty. Her closed eyes, her trembling lips, her restless body, all of it only increased Ethan's desire. He gently removed her hands and leaned over her trembling form. Ethan placed his lips right over her heartbeat. At that touch, a whimper escaped Cassie's lips. Ethan consumed her body with his lips, kissing every part with such passion that he completely took over her senses. Cassie began to lose control again. She felt like she was flowing away in the magic of his touch. In her helplessness, she grabbed the bedsheet with her hands. In the dim light of the room, the heat of Ethan's breaths was melting Cassie's entire being. Feeling her warmth, Ethan began kissing her heartbeat with complete boldness. At this intensity, Cassie's head fell backward. Her whimpers grew louder in the room. He held her head with intense emotion, took her face in his hands, and placed his lips on her beautiful neck. As soon as Ethan's warm, passionate lips touched Cassie's body, a sensational wave ran through her, shaking her to her core. Seeing this, Ethan became even more passionate. To quench his thirst, he kept kissing her neck relentlessly. His kisses were so intense that Cassie felt her breath stop. Her soft whimpers created a strange magic in the silence of the room. This level of his closeness was completely new to Cassie, taking her to a place where only she and Ethan existed. In that boundless closeness, Ethan increased the pressure of his hands on her uneven heartbeats. While kissing her neck on one side, he was mercilessly pressing her heart on the other. "Ethan, please." Cassie tried to stop him. Ethan, now completely lost in passion, laid her down on the bed and towered over her. He took her heartbeats into his mouth once again. A restlessness spread through Cassie's body, urging her to come even closer to him. But her natural shyness was also pulling her back. Caught in this conflict, in this helplessness, Cassie tangled her fingers in Ethan's thick hair and gripped it tightly. That grumpy chief, whom she used to run away from, had now become the biggest truth of her life. Ethan captured her lips once again, this time with even more passion. Cassie's whimpers got trapped inside her lips. Her hands were twisting the bedsheet violently. Ethan's grip on her body alternated between soft and so hard that Cassie's heartbeats felt like they would stop. After a while, he turned her over on the bed and began running his hands over her waist. He was playing with her emotions cruelly now. "Ethan, stop." "I don't have any strength left," she tried to stop him. He leaned toward her ear and whispered in a breathy voice, "I haven't even done anything yet. And you're already scared? That was just the trailer. The real movie is still left." He bit her earlobe. Because she was lying face down, Cassie felt pain rising in her heartbeats. On top of that, that man's cruelty was driving her crazy. Nothing had gone the way she planned. Her friends were right, she couldn't refuse him. And she really hadn't been able to refuse him. He turned her over in one jerk and pulled her close to his chest. Her heartbeats were touching his chest. Both their breaths became fast again. Cassie looked into his eyes and said in a pleading tone, "I can't take any more." Hearing this, Ethan's lips curved into a smile. "I haven't even seen you completely yet. And my heart isn't full either." He turned her over again. Then he began kissing her waist. As his lips touched her body, Cassie's being jolted, and she began losing her senses once more. She wrapped her legs around him. Feeling her restless body, Ethan, within moments, poured himself into her. As the night wore on, they both drowned deeper into each other. Cassie's shyness slowly died away. Tonight, Ethan had truly shocked and maddened her. She used to think he was excessively grumpy and boring. She never imagined, not even in her wildest dreams, that this man could be so romantic. When Cassie woke up in the morning, Ethan was standing in front of the dressing table. "How was your night, Mrs. Ashford?" At this question, her face turned red with shame again. She involuntarily lowered her head. Ethan felt a fresh wave of love for her. But there was still the wedding reception to attend soon. So he couldn't fulfill his wish right now. Cassie was about to walk past him with her eyes lowered, when Ethan again put his hand on her waist and pressed her against the wall. "You didn't answer my question." Cassie lifted her eyelids and looked into his eyes. "Can I ask you the same question?" "If you ask me, I'll tell you. That night was the most beautiful night of my life. I had your company, your love, and your closeness. And I thank God for it. And I pray that every night is like this." Cassie's eyes widened in fear. "What do you mean? When will we sleep?" "You decide that yourself. Because I'm not letting you go." He was teasing her on purpose. Cassie made a pouty face. "If you do anything like that again, I'll go complain to Grandma." "Oh really? What will you tell her? That my husband loves me all night? That he touches me here?" He pressed her hard again. Cassie let out a small scream. "Ethan, you're so shameless." He smiled charmingly. "The way I am in front of everyone, I'm not the same in front of you. Because, my dear, you are my wife." "Wow, Mr. Ethan, you can talk a lot after all. I used to think you only knew okay and it's okay." "Oh, I just remembered. I still have to settle accounts with you, the time you mimicked me in front of all my cousins." "Wait." But Cassie had already run into the bathroom and locked the door. When she came out fresh, Ethan was gone. She said a prayer of thanks. A smile refused to leave her lips. A few days later, Ethan took Cassie to Paris for their honeymoon. All of Cassie's misunderstandings about Ethan disappeared. He proved to be a husband who loved her beyond measure. He fulfilled all of Cassie's dreams. He filled her life with happiness. How did you like the story? Please share your valuable feedback in the comments. Also let me know what kind of stories you want to hear next. If you want the hero and heroine's names written in your own name, mention your couple name below. We will try our best to act on your feedback. See you with a new story in the next video. Until then, God bless you.